All right. All right, hello folks. My name is Daniel Krook. I'm the Chief Technology Officer for Call for Code and the IBM Code and Response initiative. So today I'm going to talk about the 2019 competition. This is the second year that we've been doing Call for Code. I'll talk about what's different this time versus last year's competition. Talk a little bit of actually some of the results from last year, some of the winners, what we've been doing with them to make sure their applications are put in place where they're needed most. I'll go over the rules, the judging, and how you can actually take part. So last week you may have seen with Upcar and Lisa, they took you through some of the coder activities, kind of how you can get involved in the challenge. But I'll cover some of that too if you missed it, and I'll also go over some best practices. So what we learned last year around the best applications that came out, what they did right. So hopefully all this will give you the tools you need to start building applications, kind of understanding how you participate in the competition and how you can do very well in it. All right, so first up, you may have heard two names already, right? Code and Response and Call for Code. So I'll talk about how they relate to each other so you don't get confused. So Code and Response is a new initiative from IBM, and the goal for Code and Response is to be the overall program that implements the winning solutions from competitions like Call for Code. So again, we'll have a 2019 Call for Code competition, and just like with the 2018 competition, we're going to help the winners bring their solutions to life. So Code and Response is the way we do that. And Call for Code is one of the competitions underneath that support framework. And a new one also that came out earlier this year is our partnership with the Clinton Global Initiative. In particular, our commitment to train 10,000 university students on cloud data, AI, blockchain technology, and use that in the context of addressing natural disaster, preparedness, relief, and response. So those are the constellations, right? So the innovation comes out of the Call for Code competitions and the Clinton Global Initiative university events, and they all get supported within the IBM Code and Response initiative. There's a few other things underneath Code and Response, such as the IBM Volunteers Program, our partnerships with like the American Red Cross, as well as our Corporate Service Corps program, which is going to be changing a bit this year. So if you want to learn about Code and Response, kind of the longer term program, it's got a URL on our developer site too, which is developer.ibm.com/code and response. You can leave out the slashes, it'll go right there too. So check out that. And for both Code and Response and Call for Code, they're inspired again this year by natural disaster preparedness, response, and recovery. And just like last year, we've seen a trend growing that natural disasters are affecting everybody around the world. And they seem to be growing based on various factors, including changes in policy of public and private companies, changes from climate change, changes from types of planning activities, response activities. And so they continue to present a pretty large problem. So we want to make sure that we are doing the most we can as developers who now have this amazing power to build applications that can be deployed instantly, a new mobile application, a new web application, and also end users of those applications being able to share information. So we as developers can take our skills, bring those to people, and help try to solve some of these problems. So again, this year and probably into 2020, 2021, 22, there's still going to be a core focus around natural disasters, even though the challenge itself may be slightly changed from year to year. And in particular, this year, we are building again for Call for Code on building natural disaster mitigation applications. But what we're also trying to do is add a little bit more of an emphasis on health and well-being. So how do you help vulnerable communities? How do you get food and supplies in an area before they're needed? How do you guarantee access to clean water and healthy food? How do you understand how to improve the health and well-being of communities so they're more resilient to natural disasters? So I'll go over some of the ways that folks can do that. And I see this particular slide is a little bit goofy. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can fix that. All right, well, I'll just do it from here. We're going to do it live here. So Call for Code last year, so you understand kind of the outcomes from there, where it really had a tremendous reach. We hit 156 nations, so that's actual states, that's states within countries, places like Puerto Rico, part of the United States, but distinct identity. So we reached a huge amount of participation from around the world, every continent. I think there was even one, maybe someone was joking, but they registered from one of the research locations in Antarctica. So it's kind of fun to see that. But these folks were inspired to create applications. Not all of them submitted applications for the main Call for Code competition, but they created applications. They were inspired to go try things out. And we, in addition to that single global competition, we had lots of satellite events last year, and we'll continue to do that this year. So, for example, we'll have one in Fremont again on May 4th. We've got something planned for the UN later this spring in Geneva, as well as at least 10 universities and large corporations will all have their own hacks. And these satellite events are where you can kind of work on your idea in a 1 or 2 day period and bring those into the main competition. So again, just like last year, we're casting a wide net. We hope lots of folks participate from lots of different organizations, academic, enterprise, you name it. And just like last year, we are putting together a 5-point prize structure. So to attract and inspire applications that are really going to make a difference. So again, there's a cash prize this year, $200,000 for the main winner, as well as runner-up prizes. There's a physical award. You get actually a trophy, just like the folks from Project OWL did last year in the award ceremony. There's an introduction to mentorship to help you build your application, get feedback on it. Last year, that was through venture capital introduction. We're going to be doing something a little bit different, but similar this year. We'll have support from the Linux Foundation once again. So as the winner, your winning solution transitions from having won the prize to actually going into production, what we want to do is make sure there's a vibrant community built around it, which is what we're doing with OWL right now too. And finally, through Code and Response next year, the solution will be implemented on the ground, just as we did with Project OWL. So let me get into what we've done with the winner from last year. So, because Project OWL won the grand prize last year, they had an opportunity to engage a team of 5 IBM experts to go help them build out the user interface, improve and harden the software. They had a dashboard, for example, for end users to specify their needs and first responders to see those needs, as well as hardware to help them build out their mesh network solution. And in addition to that, they got consultation on marketing, branding. So we gave them a full support structure from IBM. And we did that in partnership as well with public and private organizations called implementation partners in Puerto Rico. So ITDRC, the Information Technology Disaster Resource Center, they're an NGO of tech volunteers. They helped us out in Puerto Rico to do some testing of the OWL solution. Engine 4, which is the hotspot of innovation in Puerto Rico. It's got lots of great connections between public and private, as well as educating students, educating developers, serving as a co-working space. And that place actually has an amazing story in that it was the single place in the western suburb of Bayamon that had power after Hurricane Maria. So it became kind of a community center, and therefore they've got really good firsthand experience on how you restore connectivity, what sort of things are needed, and the scope of the problem that affected Puerto Rico in 2017. We also did some testing with the University of Puerto Rico at the Rio Piedras campus in San Juan. We spoke with the Chief Innovation Officer and Information Officer. She's one and the same person this year. And we spoke to countless other groups, partners like Johnson & Johnson, AT&T FirstNet, folks that went through the storm, that have employees on the island. And they all helped us refine what Project OWL had built and make sure that it really applied in the context of Puerto Rico. So if you do want to check out more of the 2018 winner, they've got a GitHub organization, github.com/project-owl. There's a few repos in there. There's one for the hardware connection if you're interested in IoT side. There's for the software, the dashboard. There's one for their web application and some other testing tools as well. So if you get involved there, you can join the Slack community that they have, and meet some of the other people on the team that have been helping them out, as well as those IBM volunteers that have been helping them improve the solution. So we do hope that to engage with them throughout 2018 as part of Code and Response, to make sure that they can build a solid production application out of this. So very great to see kind of the full end to end of Call for Code 18 coming through here as we kick off 2019. So yeah, just a little more on what we did in Puerto Rico with them. So if you are the winner in 2019, this is the model we will follow as part of that Code and Response support. We spent 2 weeks on the ground in Puerto Rico, working with the partners. For example, I mentioned AT&T FirstNet, the University of Puerto Rico. We met the governor of Puerto Rico, Ricardo Rosselló, demonstrated the solution for him, got some feedback from lots of other hackers on the ground in Puerto Rico, experts who were there, able to help us choose the locations for testing, learn about the local context, and in particular, learn about the areas that were most ill-served by response, I'd say, in terms of the ones that got connectivity, network connectivity back in 9 months rather than almost immediately. And that's where we really see the Project Owl solution finding their niche, is in reestablishing network connectivity for people to express their needs in a place where just a 1% network is going to be good enough, not a full 100% network to stream Netflix, but just enough to get some information over a mesh network. So very exciting 2 weeks down there. We led up to that with 12 weeks of working through Slack, introducing the IBMers to the Project Owl team, so that we were able to hit the ground running and continue to give them recommendations after that 2-week deployment. If there's actually an AP News article, unfortunately I didn't link it from here, that talks a bit about the testing and the outcomes we did. So if you go to callforcode.org, there's a press section on there. You can find the link. It was syndicated out to over 50 different publications. So just look for Puerto Rico attracts tech developers. That should get the article for you. But a great time to test and iterate. And we did end up doing 4 large-scale tests, determining the straight line distance that a mesh network can use as a relay to get back to one known good location from the farthest possible point. We did some urban testing. There's a lot of concrete in Puerto Rico that affects radio waves, ensuring that in dense areas the solution worked there. We tweaked the power versus the bandwidth to make sure it covered the right area. We checked at different topographies, different elevations by the coast, in the mountains, to ensure that there's a broad base of information the OWL team could use to improve what they built. So so very, very exciting to bring the 2018 winner to that environment. The other teams too from 2018, they've all been working on their ideas as well. So Project Lolly, they have been creating an application. The team has created a startup building a community in France right now. They've been working with IBM over there. They've also been working with Sigfox. So the lead developer just came back from an internship with them. Sigfox is an IoT network. So that's the wildfire solution that came out of Project Lolly that's being iterated on. Project Lantern is working on their mesh solution. They'll be doing some testing in the New York area in the June timeframe. PD3R, they are building out their artificial intelligence application, something that helps identify whether a damaged building can be retrofitted, that is kind of strengthened, or has to be torn down and rebuilt completely, all to help them get people back into their homes after a disaster as soon as possible. We're working with them. That's an organization called Build Change, buildchange.org. And UAN, a network from the Agricultural Bank in China. They're still working on their visual recognition access to capital solution. So all of these folks are on GitHub, and they'll soon be linked from the Linux Foundation. We'll have a dedicated page for them. But they're all hard at work iterating. And you can hear more about the Iris solution actually in this upcoming documentary. There's a trailer off of the Code and Response website. You can kind of check some of the background of what the folks have been doing over there and what inspired their application last year, and maybe how that can inspire your application for this year. Okay, so the specifics on Call for Code 2019, again, very similar to last year in terms of the prize structure that I mentioned, as well as the scope. The scope is slightly different in that it's looking for applications that do have that health and well-being aspect covered, but anything is eligible, right? If you're creating an awesome application that does something related to natural disasters, it's definitely something that's going to be considered by the judges. But I think most applications, because we're aiming to save lives by mitigating natural disasters, there's going to be some human component, and that will fall over to health as well. So think broadly when you're building your solution and see if you can frame it in terms of being something that improves the health and well-being of communities. We're building up an ecosystem as well. If you're a developer, obviously you want to take part in this competition, or a designer, or an entrepreneur, or an subject matter expert. You definitely want that. Those people participating in the competition. But also, if your organization wants to be involved, we've got lots of different ways for that to happen. So callforcode.org, the global initiative, is setting up partnerships for supporters, essentially a logo exchange, an option to write a blog post, do a tech talk interview to share the expertise or share the APIs that come out of the ecosystem. And we've got our UN and Red Cross partners again this year as well. So the competition officially opened February 12th at the IBM Think event. That's when we announced Code and Response as well as Call for Code 2019. But we opened it up for submissions last week. So there's a larger push, and you'll see it over the weekend too. We're going to be sharing through a cause flash some more information about Call for Code with the communities that go beyond developers. So it goes into celebrities, it goes into eminent technologists, it goes into universities. So you'll see a lot of activity this Sunday on World Health Day as we raise awareness of why this is important and trying to get everybody involved with it. So that's April 7th. As I mentioned, we've got an event going on in Fremont, California again this year, as well as close to, I think, 500 events around the world where folks can learn the technology to take part between now and July. And the close of submissions happens July 29th. So you have 4 months about to start your application, start building on it, creating a roadmap for where you're going to take it after July 29th, all things that'll help the judges learn how mature your application is, the problems it's solving, and where you intend to go with it. And it'll all culminate this year, again in October, on the the UN Day for Disaster Risk Reduction, which is October 13th, I believe. It's a Saturday. Again, it's usually the second Saturday in October. October 13th is what it says in here. So that's when the awards will be given out. Okay, so I'll pop over to show you kind of a demo of how one goes through participating, but at a high level, there's 4 steps to it. It's simplified from last year. So there's just one place. Well, there's 2 places. Callforcode.org, again, is the global initiative. It's the competition for this year. So it's got the challenge scope and it's got the submission platform, because that's what's going to be used for judging. But IBM has also provided a community where folks can engage with experts and use technology to build their initial starts of their application, the foundations for it, and use that. So the very first thing you should do if you want to take part in 2019 is go to the Call for Code challenge community. You'll find the button either on callforcode.org or this developer.ibm.com/callforcode page. Just fill out the form. That'll get you in the IBM Coder community, where you'll learn about the challenge. You'll see the tech areas, the disaster areas, the healthcare content we have, so that you can start exploring, introduce yourself, work with the technology. You'll find team members to work with as well. Actually, I see that there's that should be step 3, and then go step 4. Done on the fly. So 4 steps. So you join the community. That'll get you entered in the competition. You'll start playing with the technology. You'll meet folks, meet some teammates. Again, up to 5 people, 1 to 5 people on a team. and then you can submit your code after you're done. And this year too, we're encouraging folks to submit early, and if they want to iterate on the application, maybe change some metadata about it, the team name, the team members, they can always resubmit. So we want folks to understand from step 1 to step 4, essentially the resources they have, and what's expected, and where they are in the competition. Okay, as I mentioned, you can, as you enter the competition, start to work with the IBM Cloud Technology. Again, we've got the 6 tech areas. If you entered last year, you may be familiar. We're focusing on data science, Jupyter notebooks, analytics, predictive analytics, things like that. Artificial intelligence using bots, natural language translations to interpret data on the fly. Blockchain for tracking resources, financial networks, supply chains, traffic and weather, so you can understand what sort of conditions might precipitate before a storm. Internet of Things, so just like the Project Owl solution, using the Watson IoT platform with small, low power, low capacity devices. Machine learning, and visual recognition, understanding patterns, and seeing if there's a way that you can automatically categorize or prepare for an event or respond to an event. And those are also cross-sectioned against 6 disaster areas. So earthquakes and tsunamis, hurricanes and typhoons, wildfires, volcanoes, floods and storm surges, and extreme weather. So you'll find tech talks, so videos, code patterns, blogs, tutorials, and those are constantly being updated and refreshed. So look out for more information there. And you'll get to that through IBM Code Pattern, through the IBM Coder community challenges too. So when you registered, when you joined the challenge community, you'll be taken through some ways to play with these technologies to get familiar with them. But you can use any code pattern you like on the IBM Cloud. We've got close to 200 of them. All of them can be used. You don't have to limit yourself to what's in these categories. Build something amazing and use these tools. There's also some stuff for the new focus. So healthcare, again, videos, insight, priorities. Take a look at it all. And if you have any suggestions for it, enter it in the coder community. If you found a cool data set, feel free to share that with other competitors. And hopefully that'll help you build a team of like-minded folks that want to work on the same applications you do. Okay, so now that you've joined the challenge, kind of explored the technology, you're getting ready to kind of put your idea into action. Let's talk a little bit how they're going to be judged. So the judging criteria are the same as last year, and they're equally weighted. And they cover how mature your application is. We understand in 4 months you're not going to be able to build a full-scale production system, but we do like to see an application that's solving a real-world problem that can be applied in the local context, but also possibly deployed elsewhere in the world. So if you're building an application for hurricanes in Puerto Rico, it may be something that somebody in the Philippines can use for a typhoon as well. So thinking about the global impact of what you've built, and basically how transferable it is also in how quickly someone else may be able to stand it up themselves from an open source repository, how they can understand it, and how they might be able to take part in it right away and understand it. Effectiveness and efficiency. So we don't want techno-solutionism, that meaning that you just apply technology for the sake of technology. We want to see applications that are informed by real-world problems. And if they can refer to some existing research or an article or some statistics that show the scope of the problem they're trying to solve and why it's important to solve it, all of that, making that clear to the judges is very important, is to show that, hey, I didn't just build this application because I thought mobile apps are cool and drones are awesome, but that I built something that really makes sense. And how easily does it solve that problem, right? Is it something that can be put to work, right, by an end user, by a very busy first responder? So is it something that's going to contribute to solving a problem without adding undue complexity? Okay. And that kind of feeds into the design and usability. So how does somebody actually consume this thing? If they themselves have to go set up an entire blockchain network that's expensive, that takes time, that takes partnerships. And end user is not going to do that. But you as a developer might have resources to kind of figure that out, solve how that can be done. And in the case of a mobile application, you want to make something ideally integrated with an application they may already have, rather than building a brand new application. So think about plugins, think about leveraging things that are APIs and things that are already on the mobile device. No one's going to go download an application immediately after the storm, especially if they're trying to conserve battery and network connectivity. So think about how they can use a solution within a set of constraints. Again, preparedness is a different story, but so think about think about your end user. How are they going to use this? When are they going to use it? What can you expect them to be able to have? Excuse me. And finally, creativity and innovation. So are you solving a brand new problem that's been overlooked? Are you bringing a 10 times better solution to the problem? Are you making sure that it's really adding some magnitude of value that maybe hadn't been thought about before? People were too close to the problem, got too myopic about the potential solutions, that they didn't see this brand new approach that's enabled by technology that could make a difference. So all that stuff is going to come together. We do want to see as mature the application as it can be. And there's no answer to, well, how mature does it have to be, because you're competing against others in the competition. So we don't know how you are going to do relative to them. But consider these 4 areas and you'll do well. I will say last year's competitors, Project Owl edged out the others because it had a good mix of all these criteria covered. Some of the applications may have been stronger in certain areas, the runners up, but they didn't have the full breadth that Project Owl brought. So I would say, try to cover all these, consider them, address them. And if you haven't, if there's some gaps at submission time, so when the deadline comes July 29th, make it clear in your roadmap. Say, hey, listen, this is where we are, but here's my plan. If I won this competition and had access to winning prizes, I can build out my solution to do this. So that's all completely fair, and it's something the judges really want to see. Okay, so let's look at some of the key rules then. So to be eligible for the prizes, and as with last year, the winning 5 teams will have to Apache 2 open source their solution, and they will have to build brand new code as part of this, with the kind of exception or the understanding that applications aren't built in a vacuum, right? So we don't expect you to build an email parser, right? Something that's going to send SMS messages. We expect you're going to use libraries, things that are available to everybody else in the competition, APIs, standards, open source libraries, NPM modules. Those are all okay to reference from your application. And your application may be glue in many ways, right, between some existing things. But ensure that there's enough originality in there that the judge can say, yes, this is a brand new application. It's clean IP that came from you for this competition. Sure, it's got its dependencies listed, but it can be stood up by anybody and it can solve the problem. So the flip side of that is it can't be an existing commercial product that you created. It can't be something that someone else can't reproduce without undue effort. That's the spirit of the competition, and that's what the judges will hold you to. So as with last year as well, you can participate alone or with up to 5 participants. As you're working through the competition, you may kind of work on different ideas and be on one team and then decide to go work on another team. Just make sure at the end of the competition that you are only listed as being as part of one team, and you're submitting one application. So when it comes down to it, make sure that you're only part of that one team. All participants must be 18. In order to compete, and you can't be part of multiple submissions, part of that same idea. And as with last year, IBM is providing cloud data AI technology, and as you join the challenge community, you've got a special promotion of being able to have $200 credit, good for 6 months. after you convert your light account to a paid account with a credit card. But last year's winners for the top 5, they did it with all free services. So we do encourage you to take advantage of those offers, use some of the cooler cloud technologies out there. But as long as you're using something free or not from the IBM Cloud Catalog, it is eligible. And that means you can also build multi-cloud solutions. We know that that's a reality for most applications these days. A mobile application will involve, for example, often like a toolkit for using APIs on the device for rendering things. We also know that Google Maps is very popular. Integration with SendGrid for sending emails. All those things can be part of your solution. But as long as you've got one application, one IBM service in there, or it's hosted on the IBM Cloud, or it's running on mainframe for those who are not doing network connected public cloud applications, check the participation agreement, which I'll get to in a bit, but it'll describe the complete rules. Okay, and one thing we're doing differently this year is, instead of waiting towards the end of the competition for folks to have a look at the submission form, I know for me, whenever I'm doing writing an abstract for a conference or building some submission, I like to just draft things out in a text file. Make sure I don't lose anything on the web. If my session time's out, or the form fields change, or some cache get post and all that stuff when you accidentally click submit and now you lost what you created. I write everything out in a text file in a Word document. I kind of suggest that you do that too. But the submission form, so it is now available. You don't have to log in to use it this year. You don't have to log in to see it. So I encourage you to go check out callforcode.org/submit. You'll also find that link through the coder community as one of the challenges to explore this. Open up the type form. Take a look at the fields, what it's asking for. It's got the link to the participation agreement as well. And just see what the text field limits are, kind of what the judges are looking for. You've also got them listed there in the callforcode.org FAQ and on that page. So in summary, that's submission names, your team name, or just a short name for what you and your colleagues are building. Short description, what's your pitch in 10 words or less. A long description, so think about 1 page of printed text that describes what the problem is, what you've built, why it matters. Include a solution roadmap, so where you are in your kind of vision for what you built, and a link to GitHub or source code repo. So there are field links in those other fields, but if you have additional diagrams, additional documentation, you've got unlimited space in GitHub or GitLab or Box, wherever you decide to put your actual code for the submission. So take advantage of that. Do have great documentation, another best practice, and just keep in mind that you can put additional videos there, put additional information that's going to help the judges. In the form itself, you'll want to give a 3-minute overview video, and talk about the IBM software you've used, or services or systems, and you can list your teammates too. So one thing that's different also for the submission form is that it's stateless this year. So you don't have to log in to see it, you don't have to log in to submit anything, but it also means you can't come back and edit your submission. What you'll do instead is, if you submitted something under your email address as the submitter, as the team lead, if you want to improve anything, if you want to change the roadmap, if you want to change the description, obviously you can iterate on GitHub as much as you want before the end of the competition. As if you want to come back and resubmit something, just fill out the form again. We'll take the latest submission from your email address and use that as your final submission before July 29th. So, feel free to get something in there. Another thing that we're talking about is some regional competitions. You'll hear some announcements around those. So the earlier submits, you may actually have more of an option to win some additional prizes, but more on that in the future. Okay, so let me hop over to talking about some of the tips that came out of what we learned last year. Some of this stuff, we also had a seminar at the end of, a webinar at the end of last year's right before submissions. So these best practices are consistent with those last year too, but also informed by some of the judging we did last year. So as you saw in the judging criteria, we're looking for applications that will make a real difference, that are practical, that can be put to use, that can be deployed in a reasonably short-term time frame. But it's all about quality. It's about solving the right solution, considering the end user, and making sure it's a brand new, innovative approach to a long-term problem. So there's lots of materials out there. We'll continue to do the tech interviews. We've done more on the IBM Developer YouTube channel, interviews with experts from FEMA, from medical sciences, from lots of different areas. Go check out the tech talks from last year, from this year. Understand the problem. Understand what they're really seeing as a core thing that's affecting how they do their jobs as a natural disaster expert. The UNISDR Sendai framework has got some excellent information in there, how people in the private sector, how individuals, how communities can prepare for and respond to disasters, and look for other pieces of research in the field. I really encourage you to not think of the technology first, understand the problem, understand the approaches people have taken in the past, and see, where you see any missing links, and focus your application on those. Because when you do your submission, you also want to reference some of these studies to ground your application for the judges in why you built it. Okay. And related to that, tip number 2 is don't reinvent the wheel. Right? We are looking for brand new applications, things that haven't existed before, and there's plenty of room for innovation. But a lot of the value of that innovation is in understanding the layout, the ecosystem, the landscape of what's been done before, and the tools that are already doing very well in the field right now that may just have gaps in them. So explore, if you have an idea that you're going to create an amazing drone-based visual recognition solution, keep in mind that many people have gone down that path before. And there's certainly room for improvement in terms of better drones, better visual recognition, better algorithms. But look at what's been out there, build on those solutions, plug into them, make them better. Right? Don't reinvent the wheel. And there's a whole bunch of standards out there. There's a whole bunch of APIs, libraries that are looking for technology solutions. And in fact, we spoke to the folks from OASIS, a standards organization, a few weeks ago. They've been working on an XML standard for message sharing between first responders, communities, basically those alerts, those Amber alerts that go out. That's based on the EDXL format. And that's been adopted in some communities, but not around the world. So they're looking to drive adoption of these tested, implemented solutions. And they're looking, for example, for new ways for people to consume them. So building a mobile app that has an XML parser or maybe a JSON version of this format. Think about that. Look at the great stuff that's already been out there that people have spent years of their life working on. Find out how you can bring that to your community, or how you can share that and bring that into the latest cloud technology. Okay, tip 3. So one of the things we realized last year is we asked folks to, they document their solution in the submission. They provide a link to a source code repository, but it's quite hard to match the promise maybe that's made in the demo video with what they've described in their roadmap versus what's actually in the source code repository. And it was a little frustrating for judges last year to see an awesome demo video, a great team name, a great mission statement, and a great description. And then you go to the repo, and it's just like boilerplate GitHub, where you got to drill into a whole bunch of folders, and then you're like, that's where it is. Me as a very technical judge, I knew how to navigate and find that stuff and kind of understand how complete it was. But other folks, they may not be able to kind of make sense of that GitHub repository and see that from the same point of view, and therefore may have rated the application lower, even though it was awesome, but it just wasn't evident how mature it was and whether it was something real. So do your best to obviously build a great application, but don't neglect the README files. Don't neglect all that information. Your GitHub repository is really going to be your, obviously being the most important thing as being the code itself, but also the key source where people can learn about the application and see what's there, see how mature it is. It's the meat behind the sizzle. And again, with this year, we expect that people are going to patch their repositories after the submission date, but there can't be significant changes in those repos after the submission deadline. If there's continuous integration, Travis build fixes that have to happen, judges will understand that, but your application functionally has to be complete by the deadline. Okay, so going back to the video, again, take advantage of using kind of your GitHub repository as the most complete thing you have, but the thing you're going to need that most judges, technical or not, and this year we're going to have technical folks, developer advocates from IBM, SMEs from the Red Cross, SMEs from the UN, SMEs from lots of different areas. The thing that's going to appeal to every judge to set your application, your submission apart from everybody else is an awesome 3-minute video. It doesn't need to be, full production grade movie trailer. That's cool. We saw one of those last year, which was awesome. It was a little suspicious because it looked like it was, built before the competition, but it wasn't. That was quite amazing. But really, use that time to show what you're doing, show the maturity of what you built, and show where you plan to go with this. What's your long game for this thing? And do it in as compelling a way as possible. Tell the story. And you can provide a longer form of that video, again, linked from your GitHub repo, but focus on this really being the pitch that goes to the judges. Every judge will look at this, even if they can't make sense of every last detail of your GitHub repository. Spend some good time here. And being that you'll provide links to a GitHub repository or a YouTube video in your submission, make sure that the judges can see them. We had a couple submissions last year that sounded great. What was in the submission itself was great, but the Vimeo video maybe required a password that wasn't given, or the YouTube link was marked as private, or the GitHub repository was again private. The easiest thing to do is flip the public bit after the deadline. So if you're afraid, if you want to keep your kind of solution to yourself until others, so no one else can submit the same thing by copying you, just wait till the deadline and then make it all public right after, because the judges won't start judging on August 1st. There will be kind of a little bit of time. So as soon as the deadline passes, turn everything public, and then the judges can have a look at everything, and no one else can build their application using your idea in the competition. There is a private, service ID for the Call for Code judges. You can invite that as an outside collaborator too. It makes things a little more difficult, so I do just recommend publish it, make sure it's Apache 2 license, make sure there's no passwords on it, and that's gonna make it the easiest for the judges to figure out what you've built. Okay, so let me now go over to working on the kind of taking through the end user experience. So we'll see how this goes. And in the meantime, Mike, did we get any questions in the chat? Oh, yeah, I see it now. Yeah, I got it pulled up the other way. Cool. Okay. All right. Then I shall go over to developer.ibm.com/call for code. So this is a great place to start. Submissions are open, actually, and you don't need that banner anymore. Let me close that. So what you'll find when you get here is you'll be able to enter the competition by joining the challenge community. That'll get you all the accounts you need. That'll get you access to the code. That'll get you into the community. So that's mainly what you're gonna do on this page. You can also explore some other stuff before you get to that point, though. I put together a blog post, kind of the welcome letter. It covers some of the stuff I just talked about. You can check that out. you can go over to the callforcode.org community. So callforcode.org, since that's the global initiative, that's the competition, that site is the canonical source for the rules and the judging platform. So again, you can join the challenge community from there as well. And you'll find, you'll learn about the scope, what we're looking for. You'll learn about the prizes in more detail, some of the tools that are available to you right now, the schedule at a high level, and some of the technologies that you can start to use for your application. Again, rules and judging. And as we get the eminent judges listed here, those will show up as well. So you kind of know the background of the people that are going to be looking at your code. So, so yeah, you can join the challenge community there. You can join it here. It's the same form. And you can kind of take a look at some of the other stuff. So if you want to catch up on what the winners were doing from last year, you can check out Project Owl, listen to where they're at and where they're looking for folks to help them out in implementing their solution. And you can also find the link to the resources here, the code patterns for particular technology areas. And if you're new to the IBM Cloud, basic link to the docs, and you can see the other code patterns. So you don't have to limit yourself to what's here, but these are ones that are pretty well used, pretty pretty popular, and pretty well used last year, as well as in some of the applications we've seen built this year. So that's the resources. That's the health information. We've got a page for those areas too. So the health and well-being emphasis. There's areas: food and water safety, supply distribution, disease epidemics, health records access, mental health, and vulnerable populations. So these are all inspire you to kind of build your application in the context of health and well-being. Okay, so and you can also find a link to the events. So there may be local regional competitions happening in your area. There may be meetups on IBM technology. You can find those here as well. And I believe we do have about 500 planned over the next 4 months. So I'm sure you will find something. And we have some virtual hackathons that will be announced as well. So if you are that one person that I mentioned in Antarctica, don't worry. If your satellite uplink can handle the stream, we've got stuff for you. Okay, so yeah, the first thing you should do, join that challenge community. I will try to create one here right now. Let's see, let's go with Krook demo at cloud.com. Let's see. What shall we call this one? Okay, good. Okay, you can see. Okay, good. Let's create an account. Oh boy, the captchas. Yep, I got them all. Okay, check. Validate that. I've got it in another window over here. All right. That's wrong. 1 second. Okay, just activated my account. Okay. Okay. Oops. Okay, and once I do that, I should be into my IBM Cloud Coder community. Should drop me in there. Oops. Actually, I can just use the URL there. This is the link to the Coder community it will send me into, but I've closed that window by accident. So after I sign in, join the community, it's going to bring me to the Coder community. And within the Coder community, I'll have a set of experiences to go through. So they will help me understand the challenge, check out the welcome videos, learn about the challenge scope, and then go through a couple of oops. Oops. Okay. Good old T's and C's. Okay, let me configure my profile. So this is the Coder community, the first time you join here. Full name. I'm not going to show my email address. Should do that so I don't confuse myself. I am a developer. It's called Cloud Dragons. Okay, good. Okay, so I've got my profile updated, and I am now in the Call for Code experience. So as you go through the Coder program, what you do is you kind of work your way through. It's a guided roadmap, basically, for taking part in Call for Code. And as you go through the experiences, which are composed of these individual numbered challenges, you'll earn credits, Coder credits. Those can be used down the road. Right now, you can't cash them in for anything just yet, but we've got some plans for them. But basically, work your way through the numbered challenges. Many of them are pretty simple. All you got to do is watch a video, kind of learn about, read a blog post, and then take some action. And once you complete it with them, they drop under the completed challenges. So you can see whenever there's new stuff that's released, so we have weekly new content and maybe a new blog post, a new API from a partner, those will all show up in the experience. And introduce yourself on the forums, get familiar with the IBM Cloud, work on one of the code patterns. So working through how to build a chatbot using the IBM Cloud. You can go through the steps on those. And wrapping it up is when you've gone through this, you've met your teammates on the forums. Once you've kind of worked your way through the challenges, met some folks, introduced yourself, interacted, asked some questions, and you're finally ready to submit your application. We look at this final preparation one. Go over to the submission form. And this is where you can explore what you'll need to take part. So everybody on the team has to accept the participation agreement to be eligible, but only the team lead needs to go ahead and submit. Go take a look at the form. Take a look at the David Clark Cause privacy policy. Call for Code is owned by David Clark Cause. IBM is the founding partner with them, but they own the privacy policy. So go take a look at that. Take a look at the participation agreement, which has details as well from the rules and eligibility. And then you can start to enter your team name. Disasters. Using it will have a 10x impact on food security. I'll just grab some of this here. Sometimes I just use lipsum.com, has some fun just dummy text generator. But this is the one page of content. Roadmap, you can just upload a file there. Let's see if I have something I can do. Ecosystem, yeah, let's see. Let's use this calendar. Okay, I've got a file in there. Oops. Okay. Put a YouTube video in there. Okay. Okay. And I have affinity for the all-in islands. Dragons. I don't have any teammates, but if I wanted to, I'd enter them there. And that's all you got to do is submit. And again, if I wanted to update that, I can go ahead and do it. Again, we don't expect everybody to submit up front, but feel free to explore that, kind of work through what you've submitted. And that's it. You are entered in the competition. So we're coming to the top of the hour here. I hope that was helpful, that was valuable. Does anybody have any questions in the chat or anything? Otherwise, you can always find me on Twitter. The Twitter handles should be up on the screen. You can mention me, and I can give you any information you may need after this. I'm in the IBM Coder forums as well, so look for me there. And good luck.